Hello all. I'd like to continue with this second part of the video on the Easter Procession by talking about these three pieces that are here today, the symbols of the resurrection, the cross of the Eternal Priesthood or the Passion Cross, the statue of the Resurrected Christ, and the Paschal Candle. So these are the three symbols of resurrection that are processed and given out at the beginning of the Easter Procession. Again, the first is the crucifix that is draped with a red stole that is either crossed over as a symbol of the eternal priesthood of Christ or draped down for the full priesthood of the bishopric. Now, I remind you, in the eternal priesthood of Christ, it isn't just guys with collars that stand at the foot of the sanctuary like me. It's for all of us. The New Testament letter of the Hebrews speaks of that evolved eternal priesthood, especially in chapter 7, verse 17. For it is attested of him, you are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. And later in the chapter, it states, accordingly, Jesus has also become the guarantee of a better covenant. Furthermore, the former priests were many in number because they were prevented by death from continuing the office. But he holds his priesthood permanently because he continues forever. Consequently, he is able for all time to save those who approach God through him, since he always lives to make intercession for them. For it was fitting that we should have such a high priest, holy, blameless, undefiled, separated from sinners, and exalted above the heavens. Eternal. A crucifix is used, and not a simple cross with no corpus on it, to show that there is and always will be a great sacrifice involved in the story of our salvation. It's actually the final point at the end of the procession when the priest takes the crucifix and kneels down in the center of the altar and sings, "The Lord is risen from the tomb, Alleluia," and then 3 times total rising in pitch each time. Now the second similar resurrection I wanted to speak to is the statue of the Resurrected Christ. You get your biggest, strongest, most muscular guy in the parish to process this one around. Now, as Catholics, our statuary is a great source of devotion and meaning. I mean, our churches they have statues. Most parishes have a Good Friday and Holy Saturday tomb on display. And they feature the statue of the crucified Christ, and some are ceremoniously brought in, and it's always sobering to see that statue of the crucified Christ. Now, before Easter, that statue is taken out, and the statue of the resurrected Christ is the one that is carried in procession and prominently put on display. We put it on usually the gospel side of the altar. It doesn't stay here at this parish. And you put it on a place in the sanctuary where everyone can see, quite visually, that this is Jesus having overcome death. As the gospel is on the second Sunday of Easter, you see the nail marks in his hands and in his side. But you've always wondered about the flag, haven't you? I have too, and I never really knew the answer. I just kind of heard a thing or two here, so I had to do a little bit of research, because obviously Jesus didn't resurrect carrying a flag. Probably didn't. I wasn't there. In all the parishes that I belong to, from Connecticut to Massachusetts to Pennsylvania to Ohio, that flag has been present. And it actually is a flag that features St. George's cross, most people believe. That oft-tattooed warrior saint, soldier saint of the 3rd into the 4th century that refused under Emperor Diocletian to worship any Roman gods when there was a regime change. And it served throughout the Middle Ages, especially as a symbol of Christian victory. And as our statue shows, absolutely the symbol of Christ's victory over death. Our third symbol here is the Paschal Candle. We posted previously a video of the blessing of a Paschal Candle, and quite literally in that video during the Exultet, which Deacon Jim Plaskanka sang at our church, you hear pretty much everything you need to know. It's a symbol of newness in the church. The candle not only represents the light of Christ coming into the world, but the light that forever has overcome darkness. It is to be the largest candle in the church. And some of them, if you want to do some Googling, you can find some absolutely massive pillar-sized Paschal candles in various churches throughout the world. Outside of the Easter season, it's kept near the baptistry, the baptismal font, wherever that is going to be in your church. But it's brought out for days that symbolize newness and resurrection. For funerals, it's placed near the casket of the deceased. For Easter time, it is placed prominently within the sanctuary. And for a baptism, the new light that is given to the new Christian comes from the Paschal Candle that is lighted especially for that occasion. Some traditions believe that it is processed because it's the only candle that is lighted at the beginning of the Resurrection Holy Mass, at the beginning of the procession, and that all other candles during the procession are to be lighted from it. And during the Easter Vigil, we see this as well, if that continues into a Holy Mass. So, the symbols of the resurrection show the eternal priesthood of Christ that still lives in us, his sacrifice, the reality of his resurrection, Christ's victory over death, light overcoming darkness. Unsaid during procession, but processed with glory, with chant, with singing, to the four corners of the church representing the four corners of the world. So I pray that in 2021, just 12 months from now, we all get to enjoy the sights and sounds of the Easter procession within our own parishes, and perhaps to be a little bit better equipped than we were before to enjoy that procession. May God bless you this day.